You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them. Do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are in Oklahoma City today at Infant Crisis Services. I've been in this building thanks to Loyal. Fantastic facility here in Oklahoma City. But today it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest, who is Executive Director of Infant Crisis Services, Miki Farris. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you.
So we've just been chit-chatting, and I was introduced to you guys by one of your young professionals and friend of mine, Jeff Tay. Had a great time at Bingo for Babies. Didn't win a single game.
Sorry.
I'm usually pretty good at bingo. I wasn't even close. Yeah. I'm like, what is happening here? 5 games, nothing, absolutely nothing. And I think our table didn't win anything either, which was rare.
Yeah.
20 people on our table. We still had a great night, hosted at Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club, and raised, I think it was $10,000 that night, right? Well, we raised that maybe from the donations of texting in,
right.
Which was awesome.
That was one part of that night. You're correct.
But you guys have raised $196,000,
yes,
is what you told me,
absolutely.
Right? Which is amazing from one night. Had a great time, and obviously for a great cause. And Jeff Day connected us and said, you need to hear Miki's story because it is fantastic. So this is why we're here today. Excited to dive into that stuff and how it started and tell the story and the impact that you guys have and how much you actually raise here and what you do. But before we do that, let's hear a little bit about you. What's your sort of Oklahoma story and your Oklahoma origin story, I guess?
Perfect. Well, I think I'll just start with my childhood. Was born and raised here until I was 10. So born at St. Anthony Hospital about 67 years ago. And my mom and dad had moved here from Muskogee. They had married during high school, actually. In fact, they married January of their senior year, but did not live together until June of their senior year or tell their parents. I'm not sure why. I never asked why. But that was just, I think they were passionate. And my sister is 7 years older than I am, and so she was firstborn, and I was second. And then we moved to Oklahoma. They moved to Oklahoma City from Muskogee. My dad was an alcoholic, so he left by the time I was 2. So my sister knew my dad, but I didn't really know my dad. He left the state, never paid alimony or child support. And because I didn't know him, I would ask people, like at our little corner store. It was a full-blown store, but it's about the size of a convenience store, because that's kind of the way they used to do little neighborhood markets back then. And we lived in an impoverished neighborhood because my mom was doing the best she could, but we didn't have a whole lot of. There was always more month than there was paycheck in our home. And I would ask the butcher, because he was a man, if he was my dad, or the clerk if he was my dad. And my mom would say, "Stop asking people. I know your dad. I was married to your dad." But for me, there was no skin to it. And I wanted to know why was I so tall and everybody else was short in my family, and just questions that you would ask if you didn't know your family, your father in particular. But my mom did as much as she could to make sure that we had what we needed. My grandmother and grandfather actually lived on Northeast 28th and Lincoln, and we're at 42nd and Lincoln. I went to school over in this area, so I've come back to my roots, my early roots, and so it's kind of my old stomping grounds over here. But my grandmother and grandfather helped raise me, and that was such a beautiful layer that I hope I'm giving to my grandchildren, because it's just a layer of love that it was just extra special. I mean, I think that's where my faith grew, was with my grandparents, and I do remember being a little embarrassed that my grandfather had to be the man that would go to things with me, because I was like, I really want a dad. So my mom remarried when I was 10. We moved to Wichita because my stepfather worked for a railroad company, and that's where it was headquartered. My stepdad adopted me, so I had his last name now, and I had a dad with skin. My biological dad did end up coming when I was 5, I believe, to visit, and maybe when I was 18. And then I saw him once as an adult, too. So 3 times over my life before he passed away. And when I was 5, I can remember him giving me a bike. So that was a big thing, because I didn't have a bike. And but that was kind of the only memory I have. So at 18, I was kind of then had some reasoning in my head, and I was like, oh, that's where my toes, whose toes my toes looks like, and that's who I look like. That's why I'm taller than everybody. But because of that, I had decided when I went to OSU, because my dad was determined that I was going to get a college education, my stepdad. He said, "You need to do that. This will give you a lot of options." And there'd been no female in my family who'd ever received any college that had a college education. So went to Oklahoma State University. He said, "You're going to have to help, because we live in Kansas, and that's out-of-state tuition." And so I worked at the Development Foundation at OSU throughout my college years to earn some money and be able to stay. And that also helped me, because they were the Development Foundation, to know when grants or scholarships were coming forward. So I did help in a way to defer some of the cost of that. But I had determined in college I was going to find my future husband before I left, because I wanted to make sure I was taken care of, and I didn't want to marry my dad, so I interviewed people. Many of the guys that I dated, I would interview, and I'd like, do you like to drink? And if you do you overdrink? And what are you going to do for a living? Because I'm kind of interested in knowing what my future, I mean, it was a really flawed plan, because it didn't pan out very well. I did end up getting married right out of college. Kind of based, and I kind of interviewed him too, but by the time I was 33, I was divorced with 2 little girls, much like my mom. And so I know it from a child's perspective, and I know it from a parent's perspective, that it's hard. It's hard when when your dream is unrealized, or that you're worried about where your kiddos are going to get their meal, or where you're going to get your meal. And so when we started this at Westminster Presbyterian Church as a Sunday school class, I had more motivation probably than anybody, because I had lived that experience. I hadn't quite lived the being a divorced mom experience yet, because when we started, we were going there as a married couple and new parents, but I knew what it felt like. So we started our little organization from a Sunday school class project. And when I go back and talk to the church, you can see the steeple of the church from here, which I think is kind of a neat thing for me to be able to look out the window and go, oh yeah, right over there is where this all started. We picked the weeds and painted the doors there year after year as a Sunday school class, and said we want to do more than we're doing now. So this came up because somebody knew about an organization in Tulsa called Emergency Infant Services who were already doing it. They came over to a potluck, and we said, that's what we want to do. And I remember the executive director kind of snickering and saying, okay, this is not going to be as easy as you think. But luckily at the church, everybody that we talked to said, we want you to do it. We're going to help you. We're going to support you. And if they'd not said that, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if we would have said, oh, well, we'll figure it out. I don't know. The fact that everybody that needed to say yes said yes and then supported us really until today. Their support was almost 100% to begin with, and it's, of course, they couldn't keep up with our growth. But we've opened our doors at 10th and McKinley at a 100-year-old church. So we're 40, so now it's a 140-year-old church. But we had a small space there, but it was free, and so we stayed there for 10 years. Once everybody in that building was getting bigger, we were all little nonprofits that were getting bigger. We moved to another location at 39th and Penn, stayed there 15 years. And then in 2009, we got a Donald W. Reynolds Foundation grant to build and equip a facility that would exactly fit our needs, because every place else we'd been was like, oh, we'll renovate it or remodel it and try to make it fit our needs. So we built the first 18,000 square feet in 2009 and then added a huge storage area in 2017. In 2013, we launched a BabyMobile program, which is a mobile unit that goes out to different counties or locations in central Oklahoma. So we started out in Oklahoma County 11 years ago with that, and now we're in 29 counties in central Oklahoma. And we just got some funding to buy 2 more BabyMobiles, so we'll be able to even go further. One of them needs to be retired, Thelma, the older one, who is 11. She's kind of refusing sometimes to go out. So we've decided we're going to just let her be a showgirl and go to, mission-oriented things and that kind of thing. But Louise, her sister, and then the 2 new ones, which we'll name too, are coming. Well, the 2 new ones should be here by the end of 2025.
Okay. How do you name your BabyMobiles?
Well, the first one was through staff.
Okay.
Submission. These next 2 we're going to do a community-wide submission to let people help us name them.
Yeah, brilliant. Backing up a little bit, you went to Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
What did you go to Oklahoma State for, and what was kind of like your, not childhood dream, but you go there with a plan. You think you're going to get a career. What was the work-life plan when you go to Oklahoma State and your degree?
It wasn't very thought out.
Okay.
I wanted to go to college primarily because my stepdad wanted me to go to college. I thought I wanted to be a stewardess. Okay. And I said, I'll go for 2 years, but then I want to be a stewardess because I think I can make really good money at that. And he said, you need to go for 4 years, and then you can decide if that's what you want to do. And so I started out in education and in special ed, and I did some work in the classroom, and I thought, that's probably not what I want to do. And so I next went to speech communications just because several of my sorority sisters were doing that. And that in and of itself was a little bit of a challenge too, because it's like getting a letters degree, you have to explain what your degree is and why it would be helpful in a job. Fortunately, I got a job at a large bank, which is no longer around. The First National Bank, which is now the First National Center, is where I got my first job in a management training program. So I was fairly fortunate to be able to get that job. And my current husband actually hired me to that job that many years ago. So I've known him since college, actually. I flirted with him because he was single at the time, and he did not get that I was flirting with him. I brought him Dr. Peppers. I brought my sorority sisters to his little thing, and I told him, since we've been married 30 years now, but I've told him, I was really flirting. You had a nice car, you were handsome, you were nice, and he did make sure that I got before the people that were hiring the management trainees, and And so that was my first job.
Yeah. He didn't get any of the signs?
No, none of them. None of them.
I'm also terrible at that too. So that's brilliant. Why did you choose your sorority, and how has that kind of impacted your friendship and career over the years?
Oh, it's been great. I love the fact that I was able to do that. I'm grateful that my family, who I know were stretching it, were willing to stretch it even a little further. And I missed out on the sorority thing my freshman year. I didn't know. I remember looking out across. I was in a hall that you could look across the field, and there would be girls walking in really fancy dresses over to their house. And I was like, to my next door neighbor, I was like, "Where are they going?" And she goes, "They're going to eat dinner." And I was like, "I want to go eat dinner with a fancy dress." They go, "No, those are sorority girls, and you have to be invited." And so the next year, I decided I'm going to figure this out. And then I asked my family, my mom and dad, can we afford to do this? And they said, "You're helping us with the schooling part of it. Yes, we can afford to do it." I can't believe I was accepted into a sorority, honestly, because I didn't know that many people. I was from Kansas. Everybody, I don't know how. And then once you get in and you are also during recruitment trying to figure out who, then you really don't understand how you got in a sorority house. But over the years, it's been, lots of my really good friends have been from my college, my time at OSU and in the Kappa house. So
yeah, that's brilliant. Did you go to homecoming this year?
No, we used to go all the time, but we used to be season ticket holders too, but we haven't been for a while.
Well, you have a lot of grandbabies to attend
yes,
to
we
now,
do.
so you're busy. Right?
Exactly.
I'm sure we'll get to that as well. I know, a lot of the people who I've spoken to, whether it's fraternities or sororities, that just lifelong friends and great experiences. And, it is an investment at the time, right? It's not cheap. It's a stretch. But, when you go through it, and like I said, you look back now of all the college friends you have that you're still friends with, and, maybe even there's examples of them helping out, for this, or you helping each other in whatever their pursuit is. And it's worth it. It
gives you skills that you don't realize you're going to need to use later on either. Yeah. And so I think I got a lot of skills from being a part of a sorority. And we were very scholastically oriented. My particular sorority house was. And so I learned how to be a good person, to study and to do the things, to have more than just a good time at college. Some of those sorority sisters, in fact, we just had a big reunion this last summer for our house because it was time for us to have a reunion. And I told one of the people there that she kind of changed my trajectory in college. She said, "You need to become involved. You've not been, this is your first step in being involved, but you really need to become involved in what's going on all over the campus." And that did make a huge difference for me. I mean, I got a lot more involved, and that kind of carries over to my life now. I mean, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100%, and I'm not going to join just to kind of sit in the wings. I'm going to join because I want to make a difference. And so I think that came from college and that sorority house. Yeah.
So that happens. You graduate. You start working. Meet your previous husband. That's kind of how life transforms. And you said you have two little girls. At that time, there were two little girls, but now there are two women who have children of their own. So yes, and they, that was a really hard time for them, I'm sure, because I had the same hard time in my life. But I think that they came out really good, and their kiddos are coming out good. And then my current husband, who I've been married to for 30 years, he has 2 kiddos too. So we've raised those 4 kiddos all together, and they're all very successful working adults with really beautiful, wonderful kids. The grandparent gig was better. It's better than the parent gig. You get to spoil and love and scream for them on their different sports teams that they're on, but then you get to go home in the quiet too. Hand them back and go to bed and get your 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love that. Any pets?
We don't have a pet. No, not right now. We did for a while, but his name was Jake, but he passed away several years ago, and we didn't replace him. So, and we had cats too, but and we've had rabbits, but we're not taking care of any more animals right now.
Yeah, too many babies to take care of.
Yeah, that's right.
So, first job was at First National. How long are you there, and how does that progress into ending up? I know you mentioned your Sunday school class came up, with the idea and the need for this, but how do we bridge that gap?
So, needed to go back to work because I was getting a divorce. I was raising those two little girls for 8 years and not working, but needed to go back to work because I was getting a divorce. And so I worked for a doctor, a dermatologist who was a friend who I had no skills in that area. I don't know. I just got hired because I was blessed to be hired, but I didn't have the component she was providing for me. I'd been that management trainee, got a lot of skills there, but I didn't really have an administrative part of me, and I was basically the office manager, and she taught me all about those different things that administratively I needed to learn. And then the job came available at Infant Crisis Services. We had hired somebody in 87, started in 84, hired someone in 87. None of us really wanted to be the paid person because we were all had small kids. She was going to seminary, the lady that we hired, and after 5 years in 92, she was done with school. And so I thought, well, maybe I probably should apply for that job because at that time I needed a job. Yeah. And I was working for the doctor, and I liked working for her, but I thought, I helped start this. I think I'd really be good at it. So I interviewed with the person I had hired, plus a couple of board members that I knew, and they didn't hire me. They hired somebody else, and I was like, okay. I don't know how
Reality
that happened. But
yeah.
Maybe I'm not really good at this. I don't know. And so they called back a couple of weeks later, and the lady they had hired was a missionary with an MSW, and they thought, well, those two things combined, she's on paper she was the right person, but she decided she didn't want to fundraise once she was hired, and that was one of the key components that they either didn't communicate or she didn't hear. I'm not sure which, but so they called me and said, would you consider taking the job? You were our second choice. I know, and I know that you know that. And I go, no, I don't think so. Hung up, got on my knees and said, this is what you want. This is what you've wanted. Why would you say no? This is your dream job. So I called back and I said, I am sorry. My ego got the best of me, so I will take the job. And I was going to make $4,000 a year less, which I was making $24,000 a year for the doctor, and I was going to make $20,000 going to Infant Crisis Services. And I was divorced still, and I was like, I don't know if I can make this go, but I'm just going to leap out in faith and make it happen. And I don't know that was low pay even back then, I think. But
what year was that?
It was in 90.
Okay, yeah.
92 actually is when I started back at Infant Crisis Services, and it's never been a day of work for me. It really is not a day at work for me. I love what we do, and I'm sad when I start thinking about when will I need to go, because I hate to say it, but a lot of my identity is caught up in the organization. But I think I've been really good about not being having founder mentality to say, oh no, we did that 10 years ago or 15 years ago and it didn't work, so we're not going to try that. I really try to get out of my own way and out of the way of others. And I made sure that when I started building my staff that I found people who had skills that I didn't have. And so our management team, we have about 80 years of experience altogether. I have 40 of them, so I will take half of them. But they've been here 27 years and 20 years, and there's a lot of longevity here. And I think it's because we've always stayed true to our mission, and we have core values that we stick to. So everybody that comes in here, when they start work, the very first day they're here, and some people have told me it scares them a little bit, but I will set them down at this table and say, our core values are kindness, respect, compassion, and love. And we saw that in you. That's why we hired you. But if we don't see that in you, you will be gone, because that is the way we operate and have always operated. And I think that's why we've been successful, is because we have stuck with our mission to provide life-sustaining food, formula, and diapers to babies and toddlers in times of crisis, because no baby should go hungry. We've not tried to do everything. We've stuck to that. And at that rate, this last year we helped 25,000 babies in Oklahoma. So it's sometimes hard to stay close to your mission, to stay true to it, because there's a lot of other needs, but there's a lot of other organizations meeting those needs, so we don't really necessarily have to do what they're doing.
Yeah. what is the analogy of an inch wide, mile deep, right? Versus an inch deep and a mile wide. There's so many. The good thing is Oklahoma and across the country as well. There's so many organizations that do specialize in this specifically. Or I was with Stacey McDaniel from Cleats for Kids a couple of weeks ago. Shoes, equipment, right? Like there is a huge need. They see a need all the time, as do you guys see a need, but you can refer across town to say these guys really help, and you have such a network of, to really kind of push people to a different organization if they need that specific help.
Absolutely. So. And any cleats we get, they go straight to Cleats for Kids. Yeah. So it's organizations helping organizations too. I mean, if you were to walk back there into our storage areas or our processing areas, anything we can't use, we don't throw it in the trash. Yeah. We put it in another bin and say, oh, that's for this group and this is for that group, and we all help each other.
Yeah. Before we dive into more about kind of what you do and the beginning story of being over at the church, what was your initial thoughts when you heard Gary was redoing the First National Center, and then what was it like walking back in there since working there?
Oh, and the really kind of neat thing about it is I worked in the personnel department ultimately, in the HR department, and I gave tours of the place. That was kind of one of my things. Yeah. So walking through there brought a lot of good memories back, honestly, and it had gotten to a state that it wasn't in very good condition. So that was kind of sad when I walked in there. I was like, oh gosh, this place was so beautiful, and it's kind of going downhill. But he went in and did some fabulous work for that place, and I haven't been there to eat or even visit very much. But when I have, I'm like, yep, this feels like the old building that when I was here. So I think he's done a really good job to bring that back to life.
Yeah, they do a great job for Christmas with the huge tree and everything. And I walked through there the other day and was like, we have this here, right? Just kind of one of those statement pieces in Oklahoma City that makes you proud to be from Oklahoma City. So 84 is when the conversation is started. Is that right?
83,
84, when you're in your Sunday school class. Who brings up the idea, and how does that kind of, initially bring the conversation to reaching out to the guys in Tulsa to bring them to a potluck?
Someone in that Sunday school class who I honestly can't remember who it was, and I'm pretty sure they moved away because I cannot think of who it was, but they knew about emergency infant services in Tulsa and said, we're all having babies. We're all in a pretty good place. But I know of an organization, I think they'd lived in Tulsa, and emergency infant services was 7 years old when we started. So they said, let's have them over for a potluck. And that's really how it started. It was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had a situation where you kind of have butterflies in your stomach when someone's talking about something and you go, that kind of applies. I mean, and I had that feeling, and several others in that organization. And I mean, at the church had that type of feeling. And we said, okay, well, we're going to start. And I worked on policies. Somebody worked on finding food. Somebody worked on finding the place that we were going to go. It was all everybody had a part. And it all was weaved together. Now, I really think it was a miracle that it was all weaved together, because it was really 5 different women trying to be boss. But it worked out. It really did work out. And the church took care of our babies while we were doing all of this. And one of the ministers was assigned to us, and he and his assistant were like godsend, because they were a voice of reason. They could put things together for us. And a lot of the church members those very first few years were the board. But we were under the umbrella of the church from 84 to 91. So we didn't get our 501c3. Everything kind of funneled through the church. And that was good and bad, because a lot of folks, I think that kind of limited our fundraising, because they said, well, they're at this big church. They can be funded by that big church. Well, that big church had told us at some point, you need to stretch, out into the community and do more. So in 91, we received our 501c3.
Yeah. And shortly after, you kind of come on and you're working here, and as you kind of shared, like you very motivated. This is life lived experience for you, right? You can resonate with the mums and the parents of going through this. And so you're taking donations, you're raising money and baby, diapers and food and formula and everything to do with having a child.
Right. Absolutely. I think our first year's budget was $14,000, and this year's budget's $4.2 million. Wow. And so we are consistently on the fundraising wheel. I feel like a hamster in a way sometimes. And, as of April 1, we're going to be at 0.0 again because that's the beginning of our fiscal year. We've been really fortunate, though, to be able to build some reserves so that if our heater goes out, we can fix it. If something's wrong with one of the vehicles, we can fix it. So we've been smart in doing that. And then this year, because we're 40, we're building a $4 million endowment campaign. So we're at about 2.75 right now towards that $4 million endowment campaign. But that will help to relieve some of our budgeting issues when we can have a stream of income that we can look forward to.
Yeah. What was, since working here and obviously, being 40 years of existence for this, the center and the services, what has been some of the over the decades, the big kind of, obviously having this facility is one of them, but what's that? I'm sure that's like the most recent one, but what's been some of the other points as well that are just the community's really rallied around and just things that stand out for you? I'm sure there's so many stories, but just kind of maybe some points that come to mind.
Oh, I think there's lots. I think we've been able to generationally capture a lot of different groups too. So I think it's been 20 some years since we've had a teen board, teenagers. So that was 20 years ago. We have a young professionals board. That's another generation that we're capturing to help us. They'll grow up to be the teens are growing into being on the YP board, and the YPs are growing into being on the big board, and making a difference there. So I think when you involve a lot of different generations in helping to spread the word, that's helpful. And I don't know what year this was, but I think it was 2020. It was 2019. We decided that we wanted to help babies more often. Our philosophy had always been to help more babies less often, and we decided that we wanted to help fewer babies more often. I don't know if that makes sense, but we help babies 5 times over their lifetime until 2020, the beginning of 2020, and we were talking about this for 18 months. How could we serve more babies? So we decided we were going to help babies 4 times a year instead of 5 times over their lifetime. And that was in January of 2020 that we decided to do that. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. And we never closed our doors during the pandemic, ever. That was the crisis we didn't know we were created for. We pivoted from being kind of a appointment and walk-in to fully drive-through, both on the BabyMobile and here. It's very efficient. You can see a lot more babies if it's a drive-through, but it's not as touchy-feely and warm, and you don't eyeball as many kiddos. And so we took that model, and Monday and Friday we do that. We do drive-through, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we have them come in. And that's good because we're seeing about 2,000 babies a month. And so if you can see them drive through, you can be a lot more efficient. So next week, because we're going to be closed for a few days, we'll probably do drive through the first 3 days because we can see more. But we do like them in here because as you entered today, there were kids crawling all around the floor and on top of furniture. You can see why we want them inside because it gives the human element is much stronger when they can come in.
And let's talk about this facility because, like you said, it was 18,000 square feet to start, and there's plans to expand, and you have all this. And for a drive-through, you can drive the entire around this building, so you can have a great line going around. It's not like the school pickup line, which is sometimes a disaster. This guy really works well. Tell me a little bit about the building, the facility, the services that you have, how that's progressed. And, you mentioned the babies coming here and taking care of it and having your staff here really take care of the babies as well. So,
we went from 1,000 square feet at 10th and McKinley to 4,000 square feet ultimately at 39th and Penn. And then we come here to really, I think I misquoted, 17,000 was the first. Okay. And then 18,000 was the second, so it's 35,000 square feet. And it was a pretty big shock because I mowed the lawn at 39th and Penn myself because it was a little postage stamp. And I thought when I was moving over here, if I have to mow this lawn, I'm going to be doing it for days with my push mower. But it is, but I will say the Reynolds Foundation prepared us for this. They said there was another grant that they gave us to help us have consultants to come in and help us with how we were going to fundraise, our financial policies, our HR policies, things that we had loosely, but that we were going to need to be more like a business when we got over here, because we were mom and pop basically to begin with, and now we're a vital social service agency that really has a lot of responsibilities, including utilities that were a lot more, landscaping that was a lot more, that kind of thing. But I mean, we've been able to do it every year, and we've been here since 2009, so 15 years in this facility. And I said we're not going to build anything else. We're done. But now we're building a garage in the back because we have more BabyMobiles and they have to be housed. And we haven't started it, but we're getting board approval this week to begin that process of finding the funding to build the garage. Mm-hmm. So, but it's kind of it's not a blur, but it's like you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and doing the right thing, and always getting an audit to make sure that people knew that we were, trustworthy and transparent. We have a rating that comes from Charity Navigator that is the watchdog for nonprofits. They don't look at every nonprofit, but they've looked at us for like the past 20 years, and we've gotten a great rating every year. It's the highest rating you can get, which means that you've got your ducks in a row, you're transparent, and you're handling people's funding. Yes. Yeah. I give generously, and a lot of people give generously to the organizations. I'm very cognizant of making sure that the money is put to good use and that we use it to the best abilities. When people say, well, should I buy the diapers or the formula, or would it be better if you did? We get a great deal because we do it in such bulk. But sometimes people don't want to do it that way. They go, I want to buy that. I want to buy that. I want to bring those diapers to you. I want to go out with my grandchild or my child and buy those diapers and make sure and so a good portion of our diapers are donated. Formula is not really donated. All the clothing is donated. Kind of all the extras that we have are donated because what we buy is food formula and diapers.
Yeah. And I mean, when we walked in here, kind of walking back, there's cots here. Mm-hmm. I was in the waiting area for a short period earlier, and there's a family in there, kids
mm-hmm.
running around, happy to be here. And talk a little bit about what are some of the, I guess, not physical, but when someone comes in here, like the family that's in here today, I don't know what they're in here for, but what is it that some of the services that you do provide? Obviously it's coat and baby and formulas, but right. Is there another arm to this as well?
There is providing other resources. Okay. And we've just started this last 2 weeks. Before COVID, we did surveys to ask people, are we doing what we think we're doing? Yeah. How are you treated? What do you get the most out of being here? What does your child get most? I'm next door reading some of these and crying, saying, you know what? We are who we say we are. We are who we say we are. And I give a lot of credit to our client services people because that's the face of the organization, and to our volunteers. But it starts with those core values. And one of the remarks that I just talked to my director of operations said, you provided hope. And that's all we can hope for, is that we provide hope. We know we're a short term for them, small amount of time for them organization. So will they keep coming to us till they're in 12th grade? No, because we only help them up until they turn 4. So sometimes we don't know what those outcomes are, but hope is one of our big outcomes that we want to hear them say. And when they say that, it's like we're doing it. We're doing what we say we want to do. We're providing a little respite for the parent who is worried sick that they're not going to be able to provide for their kid. And I've been there. I'm not to the level maybe some of them, but I've been there. Like, maybe we could go to the $1.89 kids night at Pizza Hut. I mean, I know some of their some of the ways that they are thinking, because I was able to experience to a certain extent what they're thinking. And so if we can provide hope, it makes my heart happy.
Yeah. And I remember when I was here last a few years ago, you with the clothing side of it, you kind of have it set up to. It feels like a store, right? The kids come in here, they get to kind of shop, have that shopping experience. You guys still have that?
Yep, we have a boutique. Because it's donated, it's not always full to the brim.
Sure.
But yes, we do. And we intentionally made it feel like a boutique. We use all the same hangers, so they're all hanging. I don't know if when you walk in someplace, you know why you feel a certain way, but if they're using the same hangers. They're displaying it in a certain way that makes it makes you think, oh, I'm got a great shopping experience here. But that's been something we were real intentional about. And we put out a call a lot for clothing and shoes and toys because we don't buy it. And so you might go in there and it's generally on the boys' side and it's generally on the britches side because boys either wear them all out or they wear them because they wear them for a long time, like their waists are the same size for like 4 years or something. So we don't have, if we go out there, we're going to be low in that area, or in the toddler sizes. We're oftentimes low in that area. But the biggest thing is when we get a cold snap like today, they're going to be asking for coats. We also collect over time and put them in boxes and save them until the time comes, like Halloween costumes. We had 2 racks of Halloween costumes. During Halloween, we'll have coats. We'll have Christmas outfits. We have Easter outfits. So there's seasonal things that we do that we save throughout the whole year so that when those seasons come, we have an extra something that we can give families. We just made some blessing bags this last weekend where there's 4 or 5 items: wipes, sippy cup, a bottle, a book, stuffed animal. That was an open call to anybody who wanted to help us make these for the babies, and that will be an extra at Christmas too. So there's a lot of people doing toys, so we don't really need to do that, but we can do the things like those the essential things that they need anyway. And there's one thing I haven't said. They're on government programs for the most part, the families that we serve. They're on food stamps or what is called the Women, Infant, Children Program. WIC is the acronym. But neither one of those programs that are government programs allow them to buy diapers or wipes. They're paper. And so everybody that comes in here, you gotta, whatever goes in comes out. They need a diaper and they need wipes. And so wipes, bottles, sippy cups are not in our budget. So those things we love to get from outside sources. And then we give so many diapers away, and you can't really mess up on purchasing a diaper. That's the other essential item that we ask a lot for.
Yeah. Being, this 40 years, right, of being here, and obviously, you've been involved with it from its inception. And what you said earlier, you don't really sure what happens after because your identity is so tied up in this. And, I think when you look back at people's lives and you talk to people and you find, you have similar examples to yourself, and you find out, maybe they had a pretty rough upbringing or their story wasn't going well or something happened, and then they find their thing, right? Like whatever it is, they find their thing, and that's what's happened to you, right? You look back at your story and somehow it's weaved, and like I said, you weren't the first offer for this job, and ego gets the best of you, you turn it down, you pull back, you're like, no, this is my dream job. Like, life has a funny way of figuring itself out, and I think the biggest thing that kind of resonates, and I hope people listening resonates with them too, is back to the hope, right? You provide hope to so many families now, but there's been so many occasions where people have provided hope to you, and you get to this point now, and you strike me as someone who, even if you say you're officially going to retire, you're still going to be walking in this building and saying, what do you need? How can I help you? Because of just, it's not just its own thing. It is part of you. Yeah. Right. And the thing that I love is that, you've dedicated a lot of your time and a lot of your life to this because of that real personal experience and the need that you had when you were in this, right? Like I said, as a child, as a parent, and now you get to be a grandparent and spoil, which is the best part. Yeah. But what I'm getting to is, when you get to that point where, you hire a new executive director and you're handing it off, what are some of when you look back at your life and hope that you get to teach others and hope that this place is going to long outlive both of us, right? And hopefully for a very long time as well, because there is going to be a need. I hope there wasn't, but it's going to happen. What are some of the things that you are telling maybe the teen board, the young professionals board, the staff, and really giving that back, other than, sticking to the mission, which is clear that that's the plan. But personally, what's some of the things that you hope that, maybe if you were to look back on this place in 100 years, wave the magic wand and what's your hope for?
I hope that we always want to grow. We want to continue growing. We want to see more babies. We want to do more. I think I said earlier, I don't have a founder's mentality. I try to stay out of the way, and I hope that whoever at some point takes this over when I'm like 99 just has the same thought process and knows that the core values are the reason that we continue to be successful and stick to those core values. I know of a lot of people that have retired recently that have been in positions for a long time, and it works out fine. It does work out fine. And I know that. And I know I've got a very able younger set of folks who I think will be here to see that through. I think God's in control. I do. So because of that, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do that yet. I talked to another person who started her organization, Pam Newby at Special Care, and she started. We basically started the same year, and we're still executive directors of our organizations. I go, do people ask you all the time if you're retiring? She goes, yes. Do they ask you that? And I go, yes. She goes, why? And I go, because we're getting old. And she goes, yeah, that's true. She goes, I guess. She said, and I said, I feel the same way. As long as I'm sharp and able and passionate and devoted and all of that, I'm gonna keep at it. And my husband, who's somewhat older than I am, he's not gonna stop working. He loves what he does, and so I think I'm just gonna take it a day at a time. But at the same time, I have no real plans to do that anytime in the near future.
Yeah. Doing a great job.
Thank you.
From what I understand, from brief knowing you for a little bit, and everyone I've spoken to that's spoken about this. So we're coming close up to the holidays, Christmas. Just kind of reiterate what the need is for people listening, and people can listen to this in 5-10 years. The need likely be the same. But reiterate that, and then how can people reach out? How can people get involved? And if they've never heard about this place, how can they, reach out, help out, and donate anything that they can?
Absolutely. So anything that they have that's kid-oriented, except for furniture, we'll take. Food, food too, but clothing, shoes, toys. We don't give away the furniture because a lot of it has been recalled, and we don't want to keep up with that. A long time ago, we decided, and then baby beds really are kind of by law, you can't give them out after you've received them. So we do give new car seats, and we give new pack and plays, so that if they need safe sleep or they need safe travel, we've got those, and when we give them away. If they want to volunteer, they can go on our website and figure out that, and there's several different ways they can volunteer. They can also do like at-home things, for like putting little packages together for toddlers for the car, which might have some of the puffs and some juice and some things that when you're in your car and you want your children to quit screaming, that you pass that back to them. A lot of people make those. There's a lot of at-home opportunities. If you can't work or can't volunteer during the week, we're not open on the weekends. A lot of people wish that we were, but we found out a long time ago that there are not enough clients that come in to us on the weekends to make that what we should be doing. If they want to give financially, we can make their donation stretch big time because we get better deals than they can. Those things that I was telling, the blessing bags, that's one of those at-home things you can do, or get your book club to help you do it, or get your Bible study to help you do it. And it's fun. It's a fun way to do something over the holidays that will benefit someone else. We've got all kinds of drives they can do. Those are pretty much all on the website too. So if they go to the website, they will be able to see the different opportunities that they have to get involved. And that's the way we've grown over the years. It takes a huge village. It takes a huge village, and we're grateful for each and every person who joins us in that, because we don't spend a lot of money on advertising. We're word of mouth, and we do some, but not a lot. They can also attend events. The event that you attended, I'm sure you spent some money that night, and that is going to go straight to helping us buy food formula and diapers. We have several events each year. Our biggest one is going to be February 8th at the Oklahoma City Convention Center. It's called Boots and Ball Gowns, and that's a really fun event. Sometimes that's the way people get involved. They go, like you, that's really kind of, I mean,
event.
you were here before, but you were reintroduced to an event, and you became a little bit more interested because you came to that event. So that's a lot of the ways. I'm not really thinking of any others other than that, but we certainly love having people become involved.
Yeah, Boots and Ball Gowns. So February 8th, so that's going to be coming up quick.
Very quick.
Grab your tables.
Yeah, grab your tables. Yeah, the tickets, individual tickets will go on sale in January. Right now we're kind of doing the sponsorship things, but in January we'll open it up to individual tickets too.
Fabulous. Well, people listening, I'll post all the links that Miki mentioned down here in the description. You go check that out on your phone right now. Click the link, check it out. Go follow them on social media. Stay in touch. And if you have a family that just resonates from things that you've listened to today, and maybe they aren't aware of it, then let them know. This is it's a great facility, and this needs to be filled. And these guys are doing a great job.
That is a great point. We don't require a referral. The family just calls us and says, "I have a child under the age of 4 and I'm in need." We're not looking at pay stubs. We're not trying to eliminate people. We're trying to feed kiddos, and so that's that. We're a very low barrier organization. So the only thing we ask is you have a child under the age of 4 that has a need for food formula or diapers.
Awesome, and all over the state too.
Yes, all over the state.
Yeah. For people listening, thanks so much for checking in. Miki, thanks so much for being my guest. Thanks so much for everything you do.
Yep.
Thanks so much for your team of doing everything, and obviously the community for donating and making this possible, as well as your team. So for people listening, thanks so much, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Bank's where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.